Greg Gutfeld with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and Dana Perino, The Five. So what does a mass shooter have in common with an Islamic terrorist? Well, they're able to create an impact that reaches beyond their own marginal insignificance. Even a small evil pebble can make large ripples expanding across the water. A loser can kill his way to fame with a bomb, a truck, or a gun. A mass shooter in a small town can hijack an entire country's attention in one afternoon. It's the same mechanism, creating an impact beyond one's statistical importance. Morbid acts bring attention. Suffering expands from the immediate victims outward through cities, then country. The media enlarges the impact. We can't help it. It's our job. But it only makes it more likely to happen again. Those new ripples persuade another fiend dying for infamy. Why do celebrities unleash attention-grabbing tantrums after a shooting? Perhaps they wish to create an impact beyond their minor importance, too. The only solution, recognize what underlies the crime, a thirst for infamy, then deny it. And then laud the citizens out there willing to risk their lives, preventing further bloodshed. That's the silver lining in this very ugly cloud. The local heroes who risked it all to stop the horror. A good guy with a gun and a good guy with a truck. Two things the media hates. Despite being terrified, a nearby Stephen Williford grabbed his gun and shot the fiend through his body armor. Johnny Langendorf then gave chase, accelerating the ghoul's demise, the coward who killed himself. It's still pretty awful, but at least this pair made it slightly less so. Those are pebbles that deserve the wider ripple, two pebbles with the impact of a million rocks. Here's tape of Johnny Langendorf, who was the guy who chased down the suspect and drove him to suicide.
I pulled up on the intersection and I saw the shooter coming from the cars, actually right outside the church that were parked. His vehicle was parked, door open, engine running, and him and the neighbor across the street were both coming out about the same time, exchanging fire. And as he came up, I never got a look at him. I never really saw him. I saw the gunfire. The shooter got in his truck. The gentleman with the rifle came to my truck as the shooter took off, and he briefed me quickly on what had just happened and said that we had to get him, and so that's what I did.
You know, it's amazing. The fellow, the good guy with the gun, was terrified. But he still did this, these deplorables, you know, and there, you know, it's a fact that the duration of a gun attack totally depends on the arrival of a second gun. And this shows that, I guess.
Well, and the sharpshooter, as they're calling this guy, the Weindorf.
Plumber.
Lagendorf, excuse me. No, that was Johnny. I've
Yeah.
got the wrong person there. But basically, because he was a trained lawful gun owner who was able to act quickly, was able hopefully able to stop more carnage. Of course, we don't know exactly. If you look at Johnny there, able to so calmly explain the situation and what they did, and you do have to wonder, if you were in that situation, could you have been as brave? And I think in these communities, they figure that they have no choice, right? Because if they waited for the police officers, you're in a rural area, it could take another 45 minutes to an hour to get to him.
Jesse, that's an important point. I just thought of that. I mean, you just thought of that, and I'm stealing it. But the fact that these folks have to have guns because this is a population, I don't know, of about 400, 800 people. I'm not sure. I don't know if they have their own police force. Maybe they have one guy. I don't know.
Well, Hollywood doesn't understand that because they've never been to that part of Texas. And they don't know the difference between a semi-auto and an automatic weapon. So enough with the lectures. They're such hypocrites when it comes to mass shootings and terror attacks. Look what happened in New York City. After that happened, you had a Muslim kill a bunch of innocent people, and the Hollywood people said, you know what, let's not attack Islam. But then when some crazy guy shoots a bunch of Christians in a church, the Hollywood people then attack Christians for praying.
Yeah.
And they're so quick to politicize a mass shooting, but all of a sudden there's a terror attack in this country, and oh, you know, we can't politicize this at all. Chelsea Handler, I mean, my goodness, she didn't say a word on Twitter when the New York City terror attack happens, and then she's tweeting up a storm when this happens. And you also have the fact that she says that all Republicans are to blame when there is a mass shooting. Well, when a Muslim kills a bunch of Christians in this country, she doesn't say all Muslims are to blame. And hell, Hollywood makes so much money glamorizing gun violence, but they don't want regular Americans to protect themselves against gun violence. And the other difference is you have radical ideology in terrorist situations that unite these people. There's usually an immigration or a foreign element involved as well. But when you have a mass shooter, there's almost never a foreign situation. It's always someone snaps like this. So it's very easy or easier to wage a war against terrorism because there's trace evidence. There's a foreign situation. You know they want to kill all of us just because we're Americans. But you can't fight a war against crazy. Because crazy, anybody can just flip on a dime like that and do unspeakable things to anybody at any time. And I think regular Americans understand the difference. Hollywood doesn't.
I would say that Chelsea Handler was drunk when she did those tweets, but that's an insult to alcohol. I would never do that. Kimberly, can I play? This is Donald Trump labeling this incident as a mental health problem.
I think that mental health is your problem here. This was a very, based on preliminary reports, very deranged individual, a lot of problems over a long period of time. We have a lot of mental health problems in our country, as do other countries. But this isn't a guns situation. I mean, we could go into it, but it's a little bit soon to go into it. But fortunately, somebody else had a gun that was shooting in the opposite direction. Otherwise, it would have been as bad as it was. It would have been much worse.
So he's kind of like focusing on not the tools, but the intent.
Yeah.
So you have a person who is mentally ill with a gun, and then you have a person who is a good person with a gun. I'm not so sure, though, that once you label it a mental health problem, what can you do next? Because a lot of people miss, like I think half the shooters during Obama's presidency had sought psychological help, and nobody caught them beforehand.
Well, that's what makes it extremely challenging, right?
Yeah.
People struggle when they want to like grasp at something and say, okay, let me explain this, let me make sense of it. And yes, if it's your ideology and you're against, gun ownership and you want to right away have your kind of quick trigger response to mass shootings is, oh, blame the weapon or the implementation, of evil, whether it's a vehicle, whether it's a gun, etc. But in this situation, I mean, the laws were, followed. He wasn't allowed to carry. He was allowed to own a weapon, but not to carry on his person. So he was violating the law there. It's clearly an individual who has a very disturbed past, assaultive conduct, domestic violence, you name it, okay? A lot of anger directed at his former in-laws, at Christians, at the situation with what happened with the military, where he blamed his ex-wife. So this is somebody who had made these kind of threats before. So yeah, it's the exact type of individual that you don't want to be in a possession of a weapon like this. But nevertheless, I mean, it's a tragic, situation. And he was very angry about that church and about Christians and an atheist. And there's a whole host of things here that sort of came together in a perfect storm of violence and horrific loss of life.
I just think you've got 330 million people. How do you handle, you don't know how can you predict something like that? There are a lot of people who don't like their in-laws. 99.99% do not go and kill a church full of people because they don't like their in-laws. But I want to ask you something about why this debate afterwards never seems to go anywhere. Because immediately after, people impugn other people's motives. They say you have blood on your hands. They say if you're part of NRA, you have blood on your hands. There's never any factual backup to these smears, and it doesn't help. And it's like, if we want to talk about something, rather than predictably choosing our sides, wouldn't it be better, instead of impugning our motives, talking about it, right?
Of course, but the larger point is the one you made at the very top, which is nothing ever gets done. And I think there's a reason that nothing ever gets done. If you look at the political structure is such that the NRA puts a huge amount of money into candidates, and they have made it so that...
Is that true?
Yes.
You keep disproving
Well, hang
that.
on.
All
Let me
right.
finish. And it made it so that I think for Republicans, it's very difficult to say, I'm going to challenge the NRA. I'm going to take even moderate steps, because all of you have been talking
What
about...
step?
Hang on.
Well, no, these are
No, let me
legitimate
fin-
questions.
No,
Ron.
but it's fine, but I don't interrupt you, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but these are questions.
Okay, so fine. Let me
I love
answer
hearing
them.
your voice.
Thank you, my brother. But I'm just saying, all of you have been talking about mental illness, right? Okay, so if a Republican was to say, let's take some steps in terms of limiting access, especially to assault weapons, from people who have demonstrated mental health problems, guess what? The NRA would go after them. They would start scorecarding and say this person is not going to be elected. Donald Trump got a tremendous amount of money from the NRA. What is he saying over there? Oh, well, maybe it's a mental illness. You know, it's kind of early to talk about this, which is, at this point, so tired on the
I don't know if there's.
side.
Well, I'm just
But
trying to figure out
I
what
just
law.
can't-
But go
I
ahead.
can't believe, though, people say, oh, this is about Hollywood. Hollywood? Forget Hollywood. This is about 26 people dead while they're in church.
Awful.
It's unbelievable. And unbelievable is 5 weeks after some nutcase starts firing at people at a concert. And this comes, you know, I mean, it just goes on in America. They had a shooting in Colorado. Guy shoots 3 people dead. We had another shooting yesterday, even before this one, 2 people dead. It just goes on. Every day, the carnage. You guys talk about Chicago. And yet, why does nothing get done, in my opinion? Because of the power of the NRA and the power of people who say, you know what? I think this is now a cultural, highly politicized issue. If you're a good conservative, you're all about gun rights at any cost. And that is terrible.
But there's an underlying, again, you're impugning the fact that, okay, an NRA member doesn't want to get anything done. The overwhelming number of NRA people are people that know how to use guns. They're law-abiding.
By the
They're
way, I
law-abiding.
didn't say that. I didn't say NRA members. NRA members do want something. It's the NRA that doesn't want anything.
So the NRA wants more mass killings.
No, but you take, for example, something like a bump stock. Remember that conversation
agree.
after Vegas?
Yeah.
Do you think anything got done? Do you think Republicans ever
I think they're
addressed this in
working
the
on it.
Congress?
Yeah, I
No.
I thought they were.
Zero.
Yes, ATF is reviewing it now.
Oh, gosh. I'm saying that the politicians, Kimberly,
Okay.
did zero.
I get it, but I think it's an oversimplification to say
Okay.
and try to pigeonhole this and say this is NRA, not the NRA members, but the NRA. I mean, the NRA members are represented by the NRA, and I don't think
No, because
they
the
don't like
NRA
this any more than anyone else, but they don't want you to take their guns so they can't be
Nobody
there to
wants that
defend their
at this
family
point.
or their loved ones. And thank God the guy, a law-abiding patriot, came in and stepped up to the
if
plate
he come in
and was
time,
courageous.
you know, this is the argument that says, oh, a good guy with a gun will stop a bad guy with a gun. Well, the good guys with the guns weren't there in time to stop 26 people from losing their lives.
Well, they-
and what I'm saying
There
to
was
you
50
is,
in the church,
at the
and
moment,
he did help.
at the moment, what we have, he was running away. At the moment, what we have is a situation where the NRA reacts to people who are on their right, who want even less in terms of gun control. So they always are pushing and pushing and pushing. Nothing, absolutely nothing in terms of gun
Just
control.
lastly, I can't let you get away with this, Juan. To say that the shooter was already running away
know.
when this heroic guy
Right.
stepped in with a legally
By his own
purchased
account.
weapon
By
and
his own
chased him
account.
around
Oh,
and
no, that's
saved
after.
future carnage from happening.
Future.
To denigrate his heroism is
Oh,
inappropriate.
please.
Okay.
Denigrate no one's heroism. What I'm saying to you is he was leaving. So let's not.
he was
as
already
usual,
leaving?
This is,
Okay, so
this
we
is
didn't do
a farce
anything.
to say, oh.
As usual, this is where it ends up.
Let's celebrate
No
this,
agreement. All right, we learned more today about the loser who chose to target that church. Plus new details on the victims of the massacre. A live update from Texas. That's next.
Situation going on within this family. The suspect's mother-in-law attended this church. We know that he had made threatening texts from him, and we can't go into details about that domestic situation that is continuing to be vetted and thoroughly investigated. But we want to get that out there that this was not racially motivated. It wasn't over religious beliefs. There was a domestic situation going on within the family and the in-laws.
As you heard, investigators tying the Texas church massacre to a domestic situation between the families of the gunmen. They do not believe this was a religiously motivated attack. Let's go now to Adam Housley, who's live on the scene in Sutherland Springs with more developments from today. Adam?
Yeah, clearly the shooter had a troubled past. That information coming out today, really in a stunning press conference earlier today where there were a number of headlines, that what you just heard being one of them that surprised a lot of us. The actual connection to the location here behind me was the ex-mother-in-law. Now we find out he was married twice, had 2 very troubled marriages, had been also in trouble for cracking the skull of his stepson, his infant stepson. So clearly the individual who did this evil in this church behind me had a lot of problems, and there's still a lot of answers, and maybe some answers that will never be found yet to come. I want to talk more, though, about those who are still fighting for their lives. Right now, 15 people are in the hospital. We do know that at University Medical Center alone, where 1 child died, sadly, being treated, there are still 3 more children fighting for their lives and 3 adults there as well. Also here in the community, people are still, of course, just trying to understand. There's still a lot of shock. I talked with a man who is making sandwiches for a lot of people around here, who lives out in the country, and says he knew everybody in there. Everybody knows everybody. This is a smaller than a small town because there's really not even a main street here. This is just a small little farming type community in the middle of the Texas Plains that had never thought anything like this could ever happen here. One of our junior reporters just was at a cafe, and some video that's feeding in we'll have later on for you here on Fox. But the quotes that he sent me are unbelievable. For example, I won't use the woman's name because we don't know if the family's been notified, but my friend and her 2 kids, she was pregnant, she passed away. This is the best little town to live in. I just love it out here. It's a loving community. Everybody works together. We will work together to help each other in this crisis. Another lady. Yes, she and her 2 little kids, she was just a regular lady. She was a stay-at-home mom who took really good care of her kids. They came in here after church on Sundays. They have 1 more daughter in the hospital. Her husband has already lost 3, so hopefully she'll pull through. That's what people are dealing with here right now, guys. It's truly hard to even express on television. There's no answers, and right now there's just a lot of questions. And as you can tell at this hour, there's a lot of family here that needs to be healed, and everybody knew everyone. Back to you guys in New York.
My goodness, such compelling reporting, Adam, and it just makes you really just feel for these families that are suffering, that have lost so much, with so many casualties, and a number of family members passed away, the pastor's daughter, and when you hear the loss of life of a child, that was a recent update too, Dana. Very disturbing, and you are at a loss when you say, what could have stopped this or prevented it?
I think that's why you see the frustration. We're talking about how immediately the reaction is do something. And I think that there's a lot of people that could be for doing something if you could actually define what that something is. And to show that there is actual evidence that it could improve. Just not too long ago, a woman who, Leah, remember her last name, she worked for 538 over at New York Times and doesn't anymore. She wrote a long piece about how she was for gun control, but that everything that she looked at when it came to evidence and data showed that it actually doesn't work. I do think that there would be people that willing to look at either changing laws or closing loopholes or whatever it might be, but the conversation never seems to actually get to that point, and I'm not sure why it just shuts down. It could be because of what we were talking about in the previous block. I think there's also some other questions, which is, why wasn't he in jail?
Right.
Yeah.
If this is the kind of violence he perpetrated on a child, then what happened there? And obviously he did a lot of illegal things. Could there have been anything done to prevent him from getting a weapon? I don't know. And I think
felony
that
conviction.
Do something.
Yeah.
It sounds like the right thing to say at the time, but the answers are a lot less satisfying.
What was striking to me was what you just commented on, which is that he attacked a child. My God. But it's not only that.
On his
I was
ex-wife
reading.
and the child.
I'm sorry?
On both, on the ex-wife and the child.
Yeah, well, apparently 2 marriages. I was unaware. I thought it was a single marriage. But then the thing that caught my attention earlier was reading that his childhood friend said that between the 6th and 9th grade, his parents had him on extensive meds, psychological meds. So this is someone who had trouble and is known in this very small community. It's 400 people. Imagine 10% of the community's in church yesterday morning, Sunday morning. But it comes back to what President Trump said. If it's a mental health issue, maybe there is something we can do. Maybe something we can agree on.
I mean, I could agree on a few things. Juan and I right now, if you're on antipsychotic medication, if you've been convicted of cracking an infant's skull,
felony,
of beating your wife, of having bad conduct discharged from the U.S. military, of serving I believe, 12 months in confinement.
Yep.
Why is he legally allowed to purchase a firearm in Texas or in Colorado or anywhere? Is it legal to purchase a firearm in this country with that kind of criminal history? I don't see.
Well,
why
first
it
of all,
should
he
be.
lied.
So how did he? I mean, how did he get the
Okay,
weapons
but
in
for
the first
example,
place?
yeah, he checked the box to indicate he didn't have disqualifying criminal
Okay,
history, and
but
everything you've
shouldn't-
just said is disqualifying because you're convicted of anything like that, a
Right, but
felony.
you can't
it a
just-
felony?
that
if
assault
you're a,
of
if you're a
con-
bad
could be
person, you're
charged
going to
as a
check a
felony.
box and lie. There
Yeah.
has to be a safeguard in
And
there
misdemeanor
somewhere
domestic
when you
violence
run this
abuse.
guy's background check through the ATF or through the National Registry System. How did that not flag this guy's history?
But I think we were just talking, Kimberly and I, that Kimberly's saying he did have a record, but it was a misdemeanor, and apparently that doesn't keep you from buying a gun in Texas.
Yeah, no, well, any like misdemeanor, domestic violence, assaultive conduct. I mean, this is not somebody that should have this. We see these cases escalate as a former prosecutor. I'm telling you, Los Angeles and San Francisco. The deadliest calls for cops to go to and law enforcement are domestic violence situations, and oftentimes the weapon, whatnot, is turned on the police officer. Okay, Greg.
Yeah, it's interesting. I got some facts here from John Lott about background checks from 2010 when there were 73,000 denials of gun purchase going through the check. Only 13 convictions from that because there were so many false positives. So there's a lot of problems with that. I have 3 solutions that I always hammer. One of them is when you do research on media reports of high status suicides, they're correlated to an increase of suicides, the copycats, especially among young teens. We talked about that TV show that was on Netflix that kids watched, and there was a spike in suicides. So we know that mass shooters are often enamored by the press clippings of previous, and they always want to beat the score. That's a fact. Number 2, solutions like terror can actually contribute to solutions here. Identify soft targets and harden them. You could hire somebody, an expert. We used to do earthquake training when I was a kid. You could do something in a couple of weeks to maybe teach people how to react, have an escape route, those kinds of things, and also have, and this is the last one, have a good guy with a gun. Mr. Williford was a former NRA instructor. They're probably all over the community. You pay $5 an hour, they'd probably do it for free. Somebody that is there to harden soft targets. There are a lot of retired people, retired police officers, retired instructors, just generally retired hunters who know how to handle a gun because they've been trained.
There was a guy on the 2 o'clock show. His name is Chuck Chadwick, and he has a business training volunteers, and actually now it's an organization specifically for houses of worship, so that you could have somebody that is there to be able to protect others.
They're sitting ducks.
Absolutely. And if he had been dishonorably discharged, he would have been prohibited from getting it. They should include the military convictions, and he had to have a proper domestic violence conviction to also be prohibited. And he lied. Liar. Coming up, the GOP is working hard on tax reform, but can their bill survive following severe opposition from both sides? Next.
The GOP is doing everything it can to get a major tax bill through the House by Thanksgiving. Over the next few days, the House debates changes to the bill, but House Speaker Paul Ryan is confident they will get it done and hopes the Senate will follow.
I feel very good about it. I think our members are very excited about this. We're pleased with what we've rolled out. And this is what we said we would do when we ran for office in 2016. We have to have tax reform. We have to have tax cuts for people in the middle. This delivers that. And we really are convinced this is going to help get our economy growing and reaching its potential. And so, yes, we're on track for moving this through the House before Thanksgiving. That's our plan. We expect our friends in the Senate to be about a week behind us.
There are 2 obstacles. The Senate, for one. Remember, they failed to repeal the Affordable Care Act the last time, and Democrats, weary of what is being proposed in this bill. Here's Nancy Pelosi.
It's a sleight of hand. It's a shell game. It's a Ponzi scheme. They make it look as if they're giving something. They're like at a banquet. They spread out this banquet for the wealthiest Americans, for corporate America, and they throw a few crumbs to the middle class, and then they take them away.
So the tax reform bill is being marked up in committee today. If you want to follow Richard Rubin at the Wall Street Journal, I highly recommend it. He's got lots of good information. After a few days of looking at the bill, what do you think, Gutfeld?
I don't want to agree with Nancy Pelosi. I don't want to start. Look, here's my feeling. we are told that it's simplified and transparent, but it's not for the individual at all. What they're hiding behind the illusion of reducing the number of tax brackets, but that's just an illusion. It's like like somebody trying to sell you undercoating for a car. You know, it doesn't have. You're not lowering taxes. We didn't broaden the. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't sense that we've broadened the tax base, but instead that we've only piled more taxes on those who pay taxes already. And this is what drives me crazy, because the assumption is that if you're in a high tax bracket and you make a lot of money, you were there all your life. Sorry. It took me 30 damn years to get where I am. I have never been in the same income bracket or tax bracket for more than a few years.
It's a firing.
Well, that's true. I was fired many times. But my point is, people assume that if you're in a high earner and you pay all these taxes, that you're just rich. That's BS. You're not. It took a long time to get there, and the government didn't care about you. They didn't care about you when you were just toddling along, making nothing, and now you finally get to the point, and they go, take off your clothes. We're taking everything.
And then you die.
Yes, and then you die.
And then they take the rest of it.
They want to tax you again.
Awful.
Luckily,
The Wall Street Journal,
the
Wall Street Journal editorial board, Jesse, has been pretty unhappy. They like the corporate side, the cutting the tax cuts, but they do not like what was done on the individual rates. And in fact, then over at the Weekly Standard, Matt Labash, who's a great writer, writes a piece today called Kill the Bill.
Ooh.
And he is not happy.
That rhymes.
How about you?
Congressman Waters would not vote for this bill unless it's dramatically improved. It's neither big nor bold. Let's just look at the middle class people. Family of four, household income $60,000. You get a $1,200 tax cut, so that's $25 extra in your paycheck a week. Just $25. If you're an individual, $75,000 a year. You save about $2,000. Extra $40 a week. It's not a lot of money. I mean, you're getting a tax cut. It's not a lot. Now, they treat successful people like Obama would have treated them. If you're making between $450,000 and about $1 million, your taxes aren't getting cut at all unless you own a business. A lot of people don't own businesses. So you want to reduce taxes on those people because it has a stimulative effect on the rest of the economy. Consumer spending drives growth. Now, I'm hearing rumors, as you just suggested, that people making between $1 million and $2 million are getting a tax increase. There's a secret tax bracket, and if you add the Obamacare tax on top of it, and they don't let you write off your state and local taxes in New York or California or your mortgage interest, then you could be paying, if you add it all up together, 60% of your income if you live in New York or California. That's insane. I do like the corporate stuff.
What about capital gains?
Of the state tax. They're not even touching capital gains, Kimberly. So there's so many problems with this. And the argument that drives me crazy is that the tax cuts need to be paid for. It's not the government's money. How about just cut spending instead?
Well, that ship has sailed, and I think they on the Ways and Means Committee, they have lots of answers for how all of these things are not necessarily true. But we don't have a lot of time, Juan. I'm sorry, Juan and Kimberly, but they've been making those cases. Juan, do you think the Democrats are just going to sit back and let Republicans fight it out, or will they continue to push back?
Well, imagine if I was just silent, Dana, and I just listened to Greg, you, and Jesse. I wonder.
You should do that more often.
Okay, good.
It sounds to me like you guys aren't too happy. You guys aren't too happy. I was amazed. I wanted to show this to Dana. Here's a news release from the National Farmers Union. Shift to more regressive taxation would increase burden on family farmers and ranchers. I mean, I don't know who's. Rush Limbaugh doesn't like this. Sean Hannity doesn't like this.
This is the problem of not being able to go to just something that's simple, flat, and fair.
Everybody hates it.
Because everyone has deductions, and if everybody doesn't like it, do they have a win?
Yeah, no. I mean, this is terrible. I don't like it at all. I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated. I mean, I don't know what you can do to make me feel better. I have a couple of ideas, but this isn't going to do it.
All right, coming up, former DNC Chair Donna Brazile fires back at critics as Democrats try to silence her following that Hillary Clinton election bombshell. Next. Sorry.
Former DNC Chair Donna Brazile drops lots of bombshells about the 2016 election in her new book out tomorrow. And she doesn't care if some members of her party aren't happy about it.
For those who are telling me to shut up, they told Hillary that a couple of months ago. You know what I tell them? Go to hell. I'm going to tell my story.
Yeah.
Wow. Nearly 100 former Clinton campaign staffers have hit back at Brazil in an open letter after learning she considered replacing Clinton with Joe Biden as the nominee following Clinton's pre-election fainting spell. Her response?
I was under tremendous pressure after Secretary Clinton fainted to have a quote-unquote plan B. I didn't want a plan B. Plan A was great for me. I supported Hillary, and I wanted her to win, but we were under pressure.
Now, this morning, former Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook took issue with Brazil's allegation that the primaries were rigged in Clinton's favor.
The allegation she's making there simply isn't true, and actually the arrangement in question has been released. It's out in the public. Everybody can see it. And the same thing was offered to both campaigns. You know, the DNC was broke. Both the Sanders campaign and the Clinton campaign signed agreements with the DNC. The difference was Hillary Clinton actually raised money into that.
Strangely, Donna is backtracking now on the subject of Bernie being robbed. So, Juan, civil war in your party.
I don't know about civil war.
Look at how happy Jesse
Or like uncivil war.
Yeah, uncivil. I'd say that. And I think, you know, look, Donna Brazile is known to a lot of people on this panel, but I think Donna felt that Robbie Mook was acting, I think she used the word patriarchal manner, that she was ignoring her. She was treated like somebody to be shunted aside. But I must tell you. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's why she says, you know, I don't care what anybody says, I'm going to tell my story. But it comes at a moment when a lot of people think that, you know, a lot of the rifts inside the Democratic Party, the Bernie versus Hillary people, for example, Elizabeth Warren says she thinks this was rigged. A lot of those rifts have not healed, and it's slowing down the party from taking advantage of the tremendous anti-Trump fervor in the country. I mean, Trump's at 33. Well, all of a sudden, everybody's talking about this division.
You know, they still can't get over the election. They say Republicans still obsessed with Hillary. Looks like they're still obsessed with Hillary, Kimberly.
Yeah, of course. But now I'm obsessed with Donna Brazile. I love this. I love that she's like sticking up for herself. She's like, you know, having a voice, telling the truth. It's what we knew all along. Hashtag Trump rigged. You know, and so the Bernie Sanders supporters, maybe they need to they all need to wake up and see that this is what went down. And you know what? I don't think it was a bad idea for them to have considered strongly putting in Joe Biden. You know, I mean, he could have, I think, done probably far better than what happened in the election.
Do you think this is healthy airing of dirty laundry, or is this bad?
I actually think that this helps the Democrats then get past it, because it's like a family who has been like basically ignoring the fact that they have a huge problem, and she's exposing the problem, and now that allows them to move forward. And I think that for her, that this is what freedom feels like. So for so many years, I think she started working on campaigns when she was 8 years old, when she lived in the 9th Ward in New Orleans. And she's always worked for other people, supported them, been a spokesperson for them. And so to be able to speak on your own behalf is liberating.
Yep.
All right, go.
She should really troll Hillary and change her book title to What Really Happened. Just so they have What Happened,
funny.
and then Donna Brazile says What Really Happened would be fantastic. I still don't think she should have held this stuff back for a book, because what are you guys doing?
No, I'm just, I'll explain in the tease.
All right. That threw me off.
I'm sorry.
No. I don't think it's fair to hold stuff back for a book. Imagine if you have a cure for a disease, and you're a doctor, but you go, I could share this cure now, but I'm going to wait for the publishing date.
Well, except for there's a lot of examples where you might not say something for the good of the cause or the organization or the company. Actually, I'm trying to fix your tease, because I actually don't have her tomorrow. I have her soon, but the date, I have the date
chaos
wrong.
on the 5.
Okay.
Chaos.
Anyway, stunning comments from the current head of the DNC on that new liberal ad that portrays Republican voters as racist killers. Stay with us.
The Latino Victory Fund pulled its controversial ad in Virginia. It depicted GOP voters as pickup driving racist. But the chair of the DNC still defending it and tearing into Republican candidate Ed Gillespie.
Let's be clear about what's happening in the race in Virginia and in all too many races. Dog whistle politics. Ed Gillespie has been fear-mongering. He's been doing the same thing Donald Trump did. That's not fair. That's not right. When you hit the bully back and the bully starts crying, those are crocodile tears to me.
Gillespie firing back at Democrats on Dana's show earlier.
They've known they're in a close race for some time now, Dana. They've been throwing the kitchen sink at us, unveiling, awful, vile ads. I'm sure you saw the one that the lieutenant governor stands by still to this day. But that shows the desperation. They know that the momentum is clearly on our side.
Yeah. So, Dana, you had him with you today. So let me begin with you and say the charge is fear-mongering, that the ads that were run about MS-13 and immigrants, and people say, oh, he's running a Trump-style campaign because he's trying to energize the right-wing base that didn't vote for him in the primary. What do you understand?
Well, part of me feels like that he says that on the merits that MS-13 is a problem in Virginia and a growing one. There's been 8 murders so far in 2016, and that is an issue that doesn't actually affect people in white neighborhoods. Is actually affecting Latino neighborhoods. And so that was Ed's response on that. But I also think that the Democrats might find out tomorrow that this accusation that he is acting like Trump is actually not going to hurt him in Virginia, right? So the gap has been closing in the polls. And so maybe they're going to find out that Ed's figured out some sort of secret sauce, that you could be a lifelong Republican, have worked for George W. Bush, worked at the RNC, worked in Washington for a long time, and still figure out a way to win in these current times with President Trump as the head of the Republican Party.
Kimberly, what do you think?
Correct. Correct. Yes, I'll tell you why. Because he's really found the sweet spot. They should have gotten behind him last time and given more money in that final push. Dana and I always talk about that. He's a great candidate. He's found a way to bridge both sides and put it together. He's got Bannon endorsement now. The Trump thing's not going to hurt him at all. This is all about get out the vote, motivating the base. And I think this is going to be a fantastic race to watch. We may not even get results until Wednesday morning. Who knows? And they'll be watching results and the numbers coming out of Northern Virginia, as well. So this is good, and I think the ads are effective. So
now, Ralph Northam, who's the Democrat, Jesse, he says basically, you know what? They're making a big deal out of sanctuary cities. If a sanctuary city bill comes to the table when I'm governor, I'll sign it. I oppose sanctuary cities. He says that's the Democrat. Does that surprise you?
Well, because he was on record supporting sanctuary cities, and that's where the initial ad came from.
One point, there are no sanctuary cities in Virginia.
I just cannot wait. Here's 2 scenarios. Gillespie wins, and then another very major special election, not really, but then it shows that the Trump momentum is working and the media freaks out. Or Northam wins and the media makes the biggest deal out of this ever. Huge defeat for Donald Trump, and it's going to send shockwaves throughout the midterms. I just can't believe Perez was served on a silver platter the opportunity to knock down this vicious, disgusting, hateful ad, and he booted it. And that's why he's a terrible chairman of the DNC, and that's why I want him to stay as chairman.
Greg, I only have 10 seconds.
That's fine. I love how Perez is talking about dog whistles. Like if a Republican brings up the wall, that's a dog whistle to white racists. The actual guy using the dog whistles is this racist Perez fella. He's basically employing a pickup truck as a dog whistle, the pickup truck being shorthand for mean, white, evil people. So if you have a pickup truck, clearly you're a honky redneck. That's what he's saying. That's the most popular vehicle in America must mean that America is racist.
All right, one more thing up next.
Oh, yeah?
Getting jiggy with it.
Flipping off President Trump's motorcade as it made its way to a golf course last month. The picture went viral, and fast forward, the bike rider got fired from her job. Julie Briskman upset with the president about his treatment of immigrants and the way he dealt with the hurricane in Puerto Rico. She told her bosses about the photo. They told her it was a violation of their conduct policy, even though she wasn't working, not identified as an employee when she did it. Her company, though, is a government contractor, and apparently they're running scared. Ms. Brinkman, on the other hand, says she'd do it again.
She also put that up on her Facebook, which violated their, I guess, their policies at work. But that's okay. Time for, we want to give our best wishes out to Rand Paul, who's recovering from a bizarre attack from a neighbor, broke a bunch of his ribs. And it's unclear how soon he's going to return, but our thoughts are with him, and we hope he gets better. And it sounds like
my prayers are with him.
Yes,
if you don't mind.
I do thoughts. You could do prayers, but it had something to do with foliage or a fight over foliage. I don't know.
But I must say, it's kind of odd.
It is it's an odd story. Yeah. It's an odd story, but we wish him well.
Very troubling.
It is.
Get better, Rand.
Never happens in an apartment. Dana?
Sergio's taking care of it.
Am I next? Okay. So during, the teamwork makes the dream work. You ever heard that?
No.
So take a look at this. This is in Houston last week when the Astros came for their parade. A woman dropped her hat 7 floors down, and so everybody cooperated and worked together. It wasn't always smooth sailing. It kept going back and forth, but I thought that was really nice to see everybody having a good time and helping out that lady. She did get her hat back.
That was cute.
All right, Kay.
Okay, so amazing. The marathon this weekend in New York City, so many people getting out there and also many supporting special causes. And this was very exciting because this weekend, for the first time in 40 years, the winner of the women's division in the marathon was from the United States. You guys all know about this, right? Yeah. Shalane Flanagan, she said she was thinking about the recent terrorist attack in New York City during her run. Take a look.
I was thinking about the importance of what I was doing in those final miles and thinking about I really want to bring a smile to New Yorkers' face today, and I'm so happy that I could.
All right, and I had a smile, too, because I was cheering on the Culture City team, Victor Ortiz, the boxer, Tiki Barger, my friend Danielle Yancey. That's us all supporting it for Culture City, for autism, for acceptance and awareness and inclusion. So it was great.
Nice.
Great job, Danielle.
Jesse.
All right, so the media got caught red-handed pushing a fake Trump news scandal. He's feeding some fish with the Japanese prime minister. I believe they were koi fish. There he is, just throwing some fish into the pond.
Fish.
But apparently, fish food into the pond. Apparently, this got everywhere over social media, this image, and the video looks like Trump is overfeeding the fish. He got hit for that, but looks, he's just copying his hosts. The prime minister dumps it in first, he dumps it in second.
And
Fake
everyone's
news.
happy.
All right, never miss an episode of The Five. Special report up next with Brett Baer, live from Seoul, South Korea. Hey, Brett, how you doing?
Hey, Greg, thanks. Good Tuesday morning from Seoul, South Korea, where President Trump will begin the second leg of his Asia tour just shortly. North Korea obviously dominates the talks here. Big economic moves are also big, but Texas is not far from the president's mind.